Namaskar. Very good evening to everyone. I welcome you all to this very exciting session of the Young Leaders series in the very new year. First of all, let me also wish you and your families, a very happy, healthy, and prosperous new year ahead. Today happens to be the fifth, virtual panel discussion under this series, and we are indeed grateful to everyone, right from the NIPM Delhi NCR chapter, NHRDN Delhi NCR chapter, DMA, FMA, and BIMTECH for kindly associating with the event. Before we proceed on to the formal part of the event, let me just invite Dr. GP Rao sir to start the session. Over to you, Dr. GP Rao sir.
Namaskar. Good evening to all of you. We started this series. It is something unique. We wanted this series with young leaders. So that is number one. And the young leaders have to be inclusive. That is number two. The third is there should be synergy of all professional bodies. So we wanted to establish that whosoever is connected with this movement of doing an young leaders series, leadership series, around learning and development. So, and allow every time this is about sharing of experiences, sharing of best practices, and forward path. So this has been the model. And to drive the series, we chose one young leader in Yashwant Chauhan. Yashwant, as you all know, is a TIS product, works for GAIL, he's a DG, Deputy General Manager, and he's quite active in most professional bodies. He is very passionate about what things that he does. He's a great aggregator. So he can get the best and the best of the speakers and work with them. And he takes a back seat and delivers with passion, perfection. So that's Yashwant Chauhan we have got. So today, the new year, we have started. This is the first major initiative, and we have got three best people. One will be a moderator and two will be the panelist whom Yashwant will formally introduce. So it's a movement on strengthening, reinforcing, repositioning the learning and development practices across industry, academia, consulting world. So that's the mission. And don't get influenced by the number of people. Actually, the number of people who will be benefited by this, that matters. So every time we do these programs, we keep a recording and share it with people. And I always see that response is higher and higher. So because of limitations, people will not be able to come for every session. But what is important is our young people, the practitioners, consultants, trainers, students, teachers, they are getting benefited and they are giving us this feedback. That's the reason we're continuing with this series. With that, once again, I congratulate Mr. Mukesh Jain, Chairman of ISTD, for initiating this, Yashwant for driving it, and all the professional bodies in Delhi, that is National HRD Network, NIPM, DMA, FMA. And today we have the support of BIMTECH. So all of them have come together to strengthen this particular event and making it a success. With that, I wish everyone a great new year and wishing the moderator and the panelists a great success today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. GP Rao sir, for briefing everyone about the Young Leaders series. Thank you so much once again for your kind guidance throughout all the series events. Let me now request Mr. Lakshmikumaran sir, who is the ISTD Delhi chairman, to give the welcome address. Over to you, Jain sir.
Namaskar and very good evening, friends. I, on behalf of ISTD Delhi chapter, NIPM Delhi chapter, NHRD Delhi NCR chapter, DMA, FMA, all their presidents and secretaries, welcome you all to this evening, and I am grateful to Yashwant and Dr. Rao for organizing this such a wonderful program and started this series, and this is 4th program in the row. So thank you very much, and I welcome Madam Tanya Singh, Anirban Das, and Shikha Verma ji to this program. I also welcome Dr. Manosi Chaudhary, my friend Mr. Rajiv Khurana, and other senior members, and national past president, chapter chairman from various chapters. So after this short welcome, there is a very sad news today. I'm in deep pain today. We lost one of ISTD administrative manager, Mr. R. Raghuraman, with severe cardiac arrest. So he is no more with us. He was a very strong pillar and a very dear friend of all of us. He was running ISTD diploma for several years in a befitting manner. So I would request everybody to please keep a silence to pay our tribute and homage to Mr. R. Raghuraman for 1 minute, please. Om Shanti, Om Shanti, Om Shanti. So over to Yashwant. Please can carry on, because somebody told that show must go on. So we'll continue the our session here. So please carry on. Namaskar.
Right, sir. On behalf of the entire the participant, also we offer the condolences to the bereaved family, and may the departed soul rest in peace forever. With this, I would now like to start with this session. Alok, can we have the introduction slides for these speakers? We have great speakers today who are part of the session. Yeah. Yes. So I have now the great pleasure of introducing you to Tanya Singh, who happens to be our moderator come speaker for today. Tanya is the National Chair Startups at All India Management Association. She's a curator at i-Devi and consultant technology at GLG. She's holding the BTech in computer science from Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, New Delhi. She has also done MBA in marketing from Delhi Technological University, which was the erstwhile DCE, in fact. She has also done diploma in acting and direction from National School of Drama. And she's also a diploma holder in the field of Bharatnatyam from Prayag Sangeet Samiti. She's also having the AC Nielsen Market Research certification from IIM Ahmedabad. So fantastic, so variety of the things which you have done, Tanya. So Tanya Singh has actually worked as a growth consultant, business development specialist, and social marketer across industry verticals for 12 years. And she has been part, of the growth journeys of some of the key brands in the technology, media, and SaaS innovations globally, which includes, Zomato, Reliance, Hindustan Times, Invest India, Niti Aayog, where I think she was also involved, in some of the works. With the government of Arunachal Pradesh, I believe, with the investment, area, which was there, and then with the Fresh Works and the cars, 2024. She has conceptualized and run i-Devi to bring global standard in skilling and communications to India and drive permanent behavior change in the youth to be a better contributor to society every day. She is currently the national chair, as I mentioned, of the IMA, and she coaches colleges for the prestigious Holt Prize in India and is a contributing member with multiple global organizations like GLG, Ladies Get Paid, Good Food Institute, HBR, Ascent, Select, across social causes. She is part of the conscious culture movement from Silicon Valley and professes proactive health focuses and collaborative workplaces. So thank you so much, Tanya Singh, for joining today's session. We are indeed grateful to you for associating with ISTD Delhi's Young Leaders Series.
Thank you so
Can we move to the next speaker? Yes, I'm very happy to present to you Mr. Anirban Das, who is the panel speaker for today's session. Mr. Anirban Das is the Chief People Officer at Lakshmikumaran and Sridharan, which is a leading full-service law firm having a presence in India across multiple cities. Mr. Anirban is the Bachelor of Engineering Electronics and Telecommunication from North Maharashtra University, and he also holds MBA in Human Resources from Jadavpur University. Anirban brings a combination of talent acquisition, talent management, career development, competency profiling, mentoring, employee engagement, performance management, people management, and compensation and benefits expertise. He is a very seasoned HR professional with around 18 years of experience. He has worked with Big Four firms and MNCs like Ernst & Young, Deloitte Touch Tohmatsu, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and TCG Digital before joining the Lakshmikumaran and Sridharan. He has been bestowed with the several awards for his contribution to people strategy and practices. Some of the noteworthy ones are Top 35 TAPI Young HR Leader 2021 by People, Business and Economic Times in 2021, Indian Achievers Award by Indian Achievers Forum in 2021, Top 70 Young HR Leaders by People, Business and Economic Times in 2020, 101 HR Minds in India by World HRD Congress and CHRO Asia in 2019, North India's HR Super Achievers by Z Business in 2019, Top 100 HR Under 40 Leaders by Zombie in 2018. He has been an active speaker in various academic and industry HR forums and a regular contributor to leading journals like Business World, Times Jobs, People Matters, Human Capital, and so on. In his role of talent leader at Lakshmikumaran and Sridharan, Anirban sees himself as an effective enabler for the firm towards developing and deploying a business-aligned people strategy and an effective change manager proactively developing new learnings to give shape to the firm culture. Thank you so much indeed, Anirban. We are indeed grateful to you, for joining the session today and, making great things happen. Thank you once again.
Thank you, ISTD.
Thank you. Yes, so I now have the privilege and pleasure to introduce you to Shikha Verma, Passionpreneur. She is a global happiness coach, well-being strategist, and OD expert. She basically is having BCom from the Lucknow University. She has also done Master of Management Sciences from University of Lucknow. Shikha is a certified happiness and mindfulness coach from Berkeley Institute of California and Happitude. She is a certified internal auditor by TUV SUD. She is also the certified PP and emotional intelligence professional from Thomas Assessments. She has also done her education with regard to the sexual harassment prevention of sexual harassment at the workplace from Confederation of Indian Industry. She is a certified trainer by the Dell Carnegie on facilitation skills. Shikha is somebody who has worked in agile structures and virtual groups in top MNCs across IT and manufacturing, which includes brands like Hero ITS, Teleperformance India, Wipro, Honda Motor India, Yamaha Motor India, and Panasonic. She has handled large and small teams for project planning and implementation. She has conceptualized and deployed strategic HR and talent development plans for all grades, and has also institutionalized training processes, practices in a completely new work environment. She has been the induction and onboarding, process owner for more than a decade, and has designed and delivered management development programs and leadership workshops as well. It's very heartening to see that she has trained more than 10,000 employees over 17 years of her corporate stint. She is the Global HR Excellence Award holder in 2021, which was presented to her by HR Success Top. She is the council member of Wiki UP HR Council, and also the mentor and a member at Young Leaders Council at IMA. Her passion is to create value for organizations as a change agent and uplift individuals through well-being coaching, reskilling and upskilling. And her aim is to spread hope, happiness and well-being by reaching out to 1 lakh people across different ethnicity, age groups and geographies. So fantastic mottos, Shikha. Thank you so much once again for joining the session. We are indeed grateful for your association with the event. So with this, I would now like to, hand it over to Tanya Singh, who happens to be our moderator come speaker for the day, for taking the session forward and, summarizing the entire, discussion. But before we do that, let me just, do the context setting for today's event, which is based on the theme of very exciting theme of learning and development trends shaping 2022 and beyond. Now, we all know that, the kind of disruptions which are happening across the globe, right, that is actually creating a huge, I would say, change even in the L&D function as well, right? Now, some of the trends which are coming to my mind at present are, one such trend is about, the social learning, right? We are indeed, now, are looking at things wherein the social learning happens to be the new normal, because people are actually looking at informal learning, because formal learning will anyway happen, right? Which only accounts for, let's say, 10% of your learning. But it is the 90% of your learning which happens to informal setting. That is going to be one of the trends for the future. Second major thing which comes to my mind is about the micro learning, the learning which is going to be agile, accessible, and on-demand learning. How the learners of tomorrow are going to, encash on that opportunity, right? And how organizations can design their entire interventions around that. And a third and the very important one is about the upskilling and the reskilling, right? Because with the advent of this artificial intelligence, machine learning, it is also very important that you have people and the organization focusing on the upskilling and also the reskilling part of it, right? In fact, meta-scaling is also going to be one of the major trends going forward. So with this, I think there are so many things which are going to talk about. I will just stop here and hand it over to Tanya for taking the session forward. Thank you so much once again. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yashwant, and hi everyone. Welcome to this session. I'm quite excited to be kickstarting the discussion, and I think Yashwant has already sort of set the context for what the trends are looking like. But we have Anirban and Shikha here to sort of throw light and really break down the fundamentals for us. So let me quickly start by talking about the structural design of learning and development as the core component of human resources as a function across various industries, and how some of the problems are being solved at an organization level. Once we discuss this, we will go to trends, of course, which are driven by examples by both Anirban and Shikha in their respective organizations and careers. And then we'll probably try to summarize where the future is going, specifically when we talk about blended learning. Now, let me kind of start with a definition. Learning and development is technically a systematic process to enhance an employee's skills, knowledge, and competency, resulting in better performance in a work setting. Now, specifically, learning is concerned with the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and development is the broadening and deepening of knowledge in line with one's development goals. So sharing knowledge for the benefit of changing behavior or individuals or groups that enable them to do their work better and cultivate attitudes that help them perform better at work is the crux of learning and development. I'll start with Shikha. Shikha, help us understand two things. Let's start with mindsets and blended learning, and maybe set it off with respect to the importance of L&D as an organizational DNA.
Sure. I'm glad we've set the context really well, thanks to Yashwant and you. And thank you once again to ISTD and Dr. GP Rao for having me here. I'd like to state very clearly that right now, post the pandemic, what organizations really need to look at is reimagining structures and systems and processes for themselves and rejuvenate the people who are a part of their systems. Because until we do that, the machinery is not moving forward. It's been a very, very, it's a pleasant year for us, for L&D as a function, because things have moved up the ladder. The uptake has improved. Instead of the push that we were also used to doing all the years, I think the pull factor has come up in a big way, which is a pleasant surprise for us, because we thought initially it's going to take decades. So thanks to the pandemic and COVID for that. But at the same time, I think there is this herd mentality of everyone trying to do everything in one go, and there is an overwhelming influx of information that's happening to employees across the organizations. We've done implementation of things like e-learning modules or LMSs, but at the end of the day, data says that almost 70% of our employees still aren't aware of those learnings that are available to them, and neither are they effectively accessing it. Okay, so what that brings me to think of how we can change that is perhaps having more champions of learning within an organization, especially at the CXO level. So that's like an add-on role for our CXOs and the C-suite of acting as champions of learning, COLs, right? And the way forward really will be to understand how to break free from the old patterns. The minute we went back, Tanya, to work from office, one thing that has happened for sure is the status quo has gripped us again, and we've been headlocked to go back to our original patterns of working or our older, practices, so to say. So it's like Winston Churchill says, you build buildings and then your entire life gets built around it. So you become a victim to your own patterns and habits, so to say. So if you really have to move forward from here as a learning organization, I think that the most difficult part or the challenging part is to break free from these practices and the old mindsets. So hence, when you spoke about blended learning, I think that's another very misconstrued term today. We tend to confuse it with hybrid learning. So I'd like to clarify. Hybrid has more to do with the place of your learner. So whether the person is sitting in the factory or the person sitting at home, so it's got to do with the location of your participants. Whereas when you're talking blended, it's actually nothing but a mix of resources and technology, truly. So I don't know how you like your coffee, but I think each one of us love our coffee in a certain way. So that's an analogy that I'd like to use here for us to understand blended learning. Okay, each one has their own flavor. Each one has their own taste of the kind of coffee that you love. Someone likes mocha, someone would like, cappuccino for that matter. And we have like what not in terms of the range of coffees that you see in various cafes. And it always stumps me, to understand how can you have so many varieties? Now, that is the level of variety that's possible in your learning strategy and decision-making as well. Depending on the outcome, what is your learning objective? You need to decide, strategize, structure, what are the resources required and what element of technology you'd like to use for it. Now, that's the hardest part. Plus, you need to space it out. So to me, I think L&D has to play the role of an artist today. You really have to know the right mix. You have to know the right coffee maker for yourself. You have to get the right coffee bean for yourself to make just the right flavor for the audience that you're serving. Okay. And the learner has a huge role to play here. If you don't know their taste palace, what's the point? Your coffee is good in the shelf, then it's not going to serve any purpose at all. Right? So I think what's important for learning organizations to take shape is this basic understanding of what your learner wants, what are their learning patterns like, and what is the right mix for your learning outcome for that particular deliverable that you're trying to achieve. Only then can we go past this. The sad part is that we don't realize what are the elements that we need to include in this. We go problem-centric, we forget about the fact that it has to be people-centric. So the formula that I fundamentally follow is PPV. Okay, ensure whatever blended learning you're creating is to solve a purpose or a problem for your learner. If it's not doing that, it will not be effective. It will not convert into a learning system for you. Then it has to be people-centric. It has to be learner-driven, user-driven somewhere. And at the end, it has to create value. If you're not catering to these three pillars, then whatever you're doing in the learning process, in the blended learning structure, may not be as impactful and effective for you. So I think essentially today the mindset has to move. We need to break free from these old patterns, understand the design decisions, and make it more PPV in every way possible, more relevant and accessible and user-friendly. So that's my take on that, Tanya.
No, thank you, Shikha. Wonderful start. I mean, I think that the fact that you broke down and clarified that, right now we're pretty much like in a machine system of process, right? Which is across the system, right? From education, etc., to how HRs hire, how job descriptions go out, to how the L&D organization shapes up. So it's a structural design problem technically, which is why a lot of the attrition or the great attrition is happening, right? But we're going to talk more about that. I have some follow-up questions. Anirban, quick question for you. You specifically are in a legal firm. Help us understand some solutions you personally have implemented in the context of that.
Just I think I was on mute. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, first of all, thanks ISTD for having us here, and thanks Yashwant and Mr. Rao for the wonderful introduction. I'm very happy to have Tanya and Shikha and along with in this discussion. And Tanya, while Shikha said the context about the blended learning and all, I would rather like to give more on the practical approach, how a law firm works. Basically, law firm may be very new for most of you. May not many have experience in working in law firms. Law firm is a very knowledge-intensive industry. If you see, it's a highly knowledge-intensive industry, and most of the learning and development is there to improve the quality of work. And it's a continuous part, because the amount of learning and development which happens in a law firm is on the technical aspect, apart from the softer skill, is stupendous. For example, some of the solutions which we do, for example, now when the freshers come out from the college, our 5 years or 3 years law course is very rudimentary. Most of the, like for example, we are a #1 tax law firm, but there are hardly any colleges which teaches tax in the entire 5 years, or it may be only one subject, which like that. So for us to get that specialized person into when a fresher or when a campus hire joins, how to get them blended. So we have a 100 hours training program. Once they join the firm, which is now happening virtually for last 2 years, but we have a 100 hours training program in which separate modules for various facets of tax, corporate, commercial, due diligence, anti-dumping, international trade, everything is built, and the people are given the common training for all the modules together in the first go, irrespective of whether they are allocated to a customs team or a direct tax team or indirect tax team. That helps them in gaining insight that exactly what's the plethora of the law firm, because we are a full service law firm. So it's very important for them to know that what kind of services we offer and what are the kind of practice areas we operate. So that is one thing which we have. So we have a 100 hours complete training program which is focused on independent practice areas and on the independent courses in which the speakers, the senior partners will come and do the courses along with the course material, assessments and everything. Once they pass this assessment, then they are taken on the job for doing the work. Second is that we have a team of a consulting as well as litigation. So we do a lot of advisory work, we do a lot of court litigation. Now, if you understand in a advisory and litigation, there are so many cases which keeps on coming. And to ensure that the knowledge when someone is going to argue for a case. So what we do is that we have a weekly meetings for consulting and litigation separately with the lawyers of the consulting lawyers and litigation lawyers separately. How it helps is that, suppose there are some critical cases across the offices which are there, which has to be argued in the coming week. And how do we, you are struggling that, okay, what is the stand to be taken? These litigation meetings, all those complicated cases are being structured and then discussed, in which the entire attorney force is giving guidance to that particular attorney, that telling that what are the stands to be taken, what are the cases to be taken, what stand you should take, which of the provisions you should mention. And that's the collective knowledge of the entire firm. With that attorney is going and arguing the case. So that's the collective knowledge. So this serves two purposes. First is that in the entire context, the attorney is able to know that, okay, what all things every office has to say. The other people who are in the office who may get a similar case coming forward also get enhance their knowledge in that context, telling that, okay, so this kind of thing has happened in this office, so how can we take it ahead? And so that is the second thing, what are some of the solutions which we did. Third is that there is a lot of judgments which are there, which one has to digest, because when you are going and arguing in a court, you should know the judgment which has come even for yesterday. It is practically not possible for a single lawyer to go through thousands and thousands of judgments. So what we do is that we allocate the judgments to particular lawyers, and then we tell them that this case law digesting sessions are there, and you please digest the case and then come and explain to the entire law group. So basically, on a single case law digest session, probably 7-8 case law are digested, as a result of which each one focuses on one case law, and then they are able to give that knowledge to the entire group, telling that, okay, what is. So that it's actually a multiplier effect which we see. Basically, the whatever knowledge one is possessing, I'm multiplying as across to the all the attorneys, and that only make me a better firm in terms of to service my clients. So these are some of the practical solutions which in a law firm we manage to ensure that the continuous learning is there and the lawyers are abreast and updated about the recent developments. So that's the part which I wanted to cover.
Thank you, Anirban. You're the Chief People Officer. So I have a follow-up question, and Shikha, I'll come back to you. I know that's pretty much in sequence, but so one is, of course, recording this knowledge and making it a continuous process, right? But to add to Shikha's point, when we were talking about individualization of learning, let's say, and when someone's coming from college, and we assume that college maybe builds you some meta skills or some teaches you how to interact or communicate with people, right? How do you then assess the learning journey of each of these people who join you after that either training program or before that training program? How does your team do it? If you're not the one responsible, how would you sort of visualize that for your organization?
So basically, if I understand your question correctly, you are probably trying that what are the learning outcomes, or how?
No, I am actually asking a step back. So when Shikha mentioned that learning technically right now is structured with a push and pull, right? So if I know what my skills are, my core skill set are, and I know that I'm good at, gaining knowledge or being critical at thinking, and hence law is something that I should pursue. Now that law could be tax law, could be policy, could be anything. That is a different thing. But law in a sense is very common sense driven, right? My question is, how do you assess, or how does the organization, step one, when people enter your organization fresh from college, how do you assess their skill level? Secondly, because that's also learning, right? That is how they will evolve. If the skill matching is incorrect, then the next steps won't happen. And in that training program, what are some of those things that you are assessing in terms of muscles for candidates?
Okay, thanks, Tanya. I think a very good question. So first of all, when we look for, particularly from the college, now everyone is at the same level, have read through the same subjects, and no one is mastered in any of those subjects. That's exactly what we do in this training course, that when this 100 hours of training course is given, this gives them plethora that what are the various facets of law in which they can get into, or which interest them. Because this interest they will not be able to develop in a college, because someone may be saying, okay, corporate M&A is a very jazzy word, so I would only go in corporate M&A. But you really don't know that there is a due diligence part also in it, which may not be that meaty. So that's exactly the thing. So probably they make the in college, while some of the practice areas may look very flowery, when it comes to the crux, many things may not be great in when you try to implement. So when this 100 hours of training is given, after that people are being asked to choose which service line they want to enter. And during this course, once they enter, think, okay, I want to take customs, or I want to take indirect tax, I want to take direct tax, I want to take anti-dumping, I want to take commercial. Then the assessment process formally starts on based on that learning, how much you have been able to come up and whether you are the right fit for that. So that right fit is judged post the training them when they express their desire that, okay, this is something which I want to do. And then they are being assessed on that particular skill that, okay, if they have reached that particular level, at least to start in that. Because when a partner is taking a resource, they will obviously understand that I need that 6 months will be a learning period for you to cope up. But within that, is this the right fit? You may have chosen because of so many reasons. You maybe something excites you, or some word excites you, or something like that. But will you be exactly sustaining this kind of knowledge going forward? Because once you come into a career, at least for 4 or 5 years, you have to practice that law. And then only you can choose for an alternate law to enhance your knowledge. And unlike a normal technology oriented, where while shifting from one skills to other skill is not seen in a very positive dimension in the industry, telling after 6 years working in the same skill you are shifting. In a law, that is actually opposite. So person who has much more, who wants to learn more and more areas of law, that is something will make them a much better lawyer, because there is always a blend of corporate with tax with commercial. If you understand that blend, you can always give a much more better solution to the client. That is why it is always very much encouraged in a law firm that after 4 years, 5 years, you change your practice area and learn some new areas of law. So that's how we do that evaluation.
Very interesting. Thank you. By the way, I asked that question for myself because I'm studying policy these days, and I just did law and policy at Reliance. So Shikha, back to you. Thanks. That was really helpful. Shikha, back to you. So tell me, my understanding is that learning in its form, on a human level is linked to prestige, knowledge, performance at work, or, money as an outcome. But how do you, when you build programs, how do you increase the learning engagement, and what is an effective learning pedagogy in your practice?
So I'm glad you said that. Again, I'd like to put things into context that the pandemic has created a lot of stress and overload and information influx for people, and the social fabric of the organization has been frayed as well. So the lack of connect is kind of counterproductive to our learning patterns. We thrive on connect, it's better, which is why I think classrooms are far more effective. One of the recent studies by Dale Carnegie Company also shows that good 60% feel that the hybrid or the virtual learnings are not as impactful or effective, and something needs to be done, to make it engaging. So that's very good and a pertinent point to be delved into. I feel that we have a lot of these tools available in the market, and maybe not all of us are privy to it, which is why we may not be using it. So recently I had a chat with one of my, ex-learning partners who happened to mention there is a platform called Gametize. Okay. Which is a wonderful platform where you can engage with your audiences and build your entire induction, orientation, or any other modules intervention around it. You can play around with it. It's a Malaysian-based company. Similarly, for a lot of the virtual sessions that I've done over the last 2 years, I've used Kahoot and Mentimeter, the Blackboard, or the breakout rooms to kind of build that kind of connect with the audiences, and they work wonders. Okay, so one thing I would ensure I do for learning engagement is give them activities or scenario-based discussions that they can do in those breakout rooms, so that connect can come back. Small group discussions can happen, and the more we lean into each other, the more we keep the cameras on, I think the engagements flourish. I've had some fantastic live sessions on virtual platforms, which have given me goosebumps. It's unimaginable how those energies get converted and transferred to people around you. When you're on camera, unfortunately, a lot of our students or professionals during these webinars were so fatigued that the last thing they wanted to do was turn the camera on. Okay, we all were choosing to keep it off for quite some hours, or in fact, quite a few sessions, which takes away a fair share of your ability to get that kind of learning engagement, in a hybrid kind of a model. So we are posed with several challenges, and I can't exaggerate this enough, because L&D professionals, the toughest task for us has been converting our classroom modules into something which will work virtually, which is a gap in itself, because it doesn't work that way. A lot of my content for the last 20 years that I was used to delivering, I realized I had to trash it, literally. I had to build right from scratch, considering the audience and their mindset and what's going to work in that particular interaction, because each theme was unique. I was talking about imposter syndrome. I was talking about well-being more, which are new topics for me, and that too in a new platform. So the mix and the design part, again, I'll go back to curation, which is essential for us to understand where would you want to use a game? Where do you want to actually deploy it through a video tutorial, or just send them something to read? Okay, all of that helps you to make the engagement more, or the learning more effective, in several ways. So the choice depends on the learning manager, again, how are you curating and designing it. But there is a simple mantra of 4S that I would like to share, which is keeping the whole, structure and the learning journey simple, scalable, something that solves a purpose or a problem, like I said initially, and it should be something that is spaced out over a period of time, because we tend to put in too much on their brain. We're all human beings. Imagine how you and I have learned the most through interactions over a period of time, by reading something somewhere over a period of time. Okay, whatever you've read or gone through or even witnessed in a program, when you chew over it, when you go back to it, when you refer to something else that aligns to it, then these things start to seep into your mind gradually. And somewhere something might just stick to you for longer, which you show commitment towards, that you want to deploy in your life. So I'll give you an example of one of the learning engagements which I have designed in my erstwhile company. And this was an LMS which was deployed successfully, but that there was no adoption at all. Okay, just about 25% users were on the platform, and they didn't even know what were the options available to them. So adoption rate was, below 30% for sure. What I did and how I went through it was fairly simple. First is have a learning champion right from the CXO level. Let them be the ambassadors and let them do the voicing for you and spreading the awareness, that this is the platform for you and this is how we've envisioned it for you. And then came my role of spreading awareness of what all is there for people through various means and methods, by doing classroom awareness, by doing, walking up to the HODs and sending mailers to the employees, that these are the options. I created a lot of fancy posters to educate them on what all was available on the LMS platform. They could read, they could listen to audiobooks on the go when they're on a flight. These were options in micro learning that was available, but they didn't know how to use it. So I had to literally project things like, okay, you're on travels for 4 hours. Why don't you just tune in, okay, into this audio or a video tutorial on X subject? And these were things that I had to do repeatedly to reinforce that message that this is a learning platform for you. You can benefit from it. And then I tied it into an R&R scheme and then linked it to their PMS weightage. So till the time this entire process was not complete, I would have not seen the result. And trust me, the usage and the adoption and the effectiveness went up by 50-60% in just about 7-8 months. So this is a practical example of how these things work for us. What's important is to do it in an integrated fashion. I think that's an element that we tend to miss out, Tanya. Most of the times, a lot of things happen ad hoc. Most of the companies have done a lot of work during this pandemic. They've gone all out to cater to the need of the hour. But because things have not been woven into each other or structured in a integrated fashion, that impact or the effectiveness is not coming through. So I think that's the element that's required to be done to really see that engagement come through and the effectiveness to be seen. There's a book written by Andy Lancaster who says, if you want to drive performance through learning, one of the things that is most critical is self-direction. So I think we need to start inculcating that kind of mindset that you have to take onus. It's your baby. You are the winner if you do it, and you yield the results for your life, because the learning happens to you. So that's what I feel. It's not a event really. I think we've all been looking at learning far too long as an event. Training room, you will have to go or complete man hours. This is to be done. I think it's high time we start looking at it as something that happens to us over a period of time. We're all human beings. And like you said, andragogy works like that. Adults learn the most through experiences, through sharing. I think this is a beautiful platform for learning. And we're all learning through each other's experiences and sharing. So social learning, like Yashwant started off, these are the new age methods of developing people or allowing them to experience life differently. And they can always go back and read some stuff. So send them reading materials, send them links to go back to, send them YouTube videos if required. These are highly effective ways of making your learner more engaged into the learning process. Yeah.
Thanks, Shikha. I'd like to quote something here quickly because I work with young people who are fresh graduates, not so much with organizations, because I do feel that the energy, enthusiasm is something, wherein I probably feel like the younger person, so not very appropriate. But here's what I do in my class, Shikha, to your point. I think there is no such, there's this hula about, tech and trends and all of these things. Humans as fundamentals have not changed. The way education or learning was delivered has not changed. It's a pedagogy. Every learner would be different. So one would be, industry-wise, or what sort of skill you're learning, like how Anirban said, it's a knowledge intensive. So there's a lot more cramming required. There's a lot more memory required, right? So that's the skill you practice. In a public speaking sort of a role wherein you're in business development, marketing, a very different muscle or a meta skill like communications and curiosity is required. So those are skills really that you build through learning. And if you tell anyone today, adult or child, to go and read a book, they will do so at their own pace. So the way that I do this in my classes is, of course, energy is infectious, so I'm going to go in with a lot of energy. I also do breakout rooms and a lot of exercises wherein they can play with certain things on the screen rather than talking to me. Otherwise, it becomes a one-to-many communication. And then I give them the option to book one-on-ones with me, which go on for a year, once a month, because that is the way to build trust. Okay, by the way, I'm going to, we have to switch to audience questions in about 5 minutes. I'm going to ask one question to both of you, since I think we're a feed on fundamentals here. So rather than making this about trends in the future, we know that everything that was done on a human level is now getting stimulated in the metaversity or the tech platform, but isn't as effective because people haven't changed or nature hasn't changed in general. Right. Question to both of you. Anirban, what tools have you used? And what has really worked in the pandemic situation, obviously over the last 2 years for you, and will sort of continue in the next 2 to 3 years if things sort of stay the same. So that's the question for you. And for Shikha, I'll come back and if you can be quick about this one.
Yeah, I think while obviously starting March 2020, we all are working from home kind of thing. Sometimes hybrid. Again, the virus takes toll on us, and then again we go back to work from home kind of thing. So some of the tools which we have used, and in a law firm kind of thing, which is a very knowledge intensive, as I said, for collaboration, I have seen OneDrive and SharePoint working wonders, because most of our work, basically people are drafting, which is on the cloud. And then those kind of tools are something which is actually using where the senior can immediately review on the cloud itself, and the junior can, with the track change mode, can see that, okay, what are the review points, which also helps him to or her to learn as well, and what are the things which he or she should have covered. The second thing on the tech part is, obviously we have MS Teams, Zoom for the entire virtual classrooms, the face-to-face sessions and everything, which is a worldwide kind of thing, which has been success. One very specific tool which and a law firm we use, and it's a third-party app called Provoking. So what exactly happens that you have so many high court sites, district court sites from where the hearings are listed. Earlier, there used to be a court clerk who used to manually go into every site and see which client's hearing is coming and whether that is related to your hearing or not. Now that's a time consuming, and you may miss out on something. You suddenly miss out that, okay, in this court my hearing was listed and I am not aware. ProVakil aggregates this takes the data from all the courts. And once you take their license, it summarizes. If you already tell that these are the clients for which I need the cases, it will jot down everything and give you a reminder, okay, this case is coming tomorrow, this case is day after tomorrow. It has made our life so simpler in terms of to rely on someone, some person to look at it and then see that, because if a court case is missed, it's a huge, the ramifications are much more. So for us, this tech has helped us in ensuring that all the cases, none of the cases are missed. We really know that, okay, which case is coming on which day, and we are going and arguing for that. So that's a very quick one from my side.
Thank you so much, Anirban. Shikha, quick one for you then, if you could be succinct. How do you have a conversation, since we're talking, you've sort of set the base for how this is personalized and also your own onus as a person in an organization. So let's say you're in a group sitting, or as an individual, you've just entered, or maybe let's say, take the example of a mid-career employee. How would you have a conversation with your manager about your long-term and short-term learning goals? What are the keywords, the receiving party or the HR or the people officer or the L&D professional is looking for? How is it that you take control of that conversation?
So honestly, if I look at learning goals, I think learning goals should be two-way. It should come from the manager and from the employee both. So the manager needs to trickle down and percolate the organization's objectives and targets into absolute basic essentials that are required from the mid-manager. And the employee himself needs to be responsible and aware of what's required for him in the current job and in the future. So there has to be a fair amount of weightage given to both. And with respect to communication keywords, since you asked that, I think it's essential that you sound like a take charge person. This is what I have analyzed. And if your decision is based on data, and it's aligned to the organization or team's purpose, I think the manager would understand and take things forward in a more constructive way. The problem that I see people face more often in these kind of conversations is the lack of clarity and the lack of groundwork, really. So if you've scouted well enough, you've done your groundwork, you know exactly, you've zeroed in that these are the courses that I am interested in. And that's the kind of costing perhaps, and this is my proposal, that if the organization can sponsor me for 30%, I'd like to take this journey forward. Because I've seen a lot of our mid-managers, senior managers proposing us these kind of options. And it allowed me to take these suggestions back to the top management saying, is this workable? We know that we have an XYZ budget, which hasn't been allocated yet. So is it possible we accommodate these requests? Because there are very few handful people who are proactive about their learning goals, really. Mostly it has been, us pushing people or telling management to do XYZ and encourage them to sign up for certain, courses externally as well, or take them into residential programs for that matter. So I think it really works wonders if you are proactive, specific, you've done your groundwork and you go back with your proposals to make things move 10 notches above where they are today. Having said that, it's very, very important for the managers to have done their groundwork to link the learning goals with the organization's objectives as well. Yeah.
I think, that's what I wanted as an answer, the last sentence you said, because unfortunately, it's not very easy for us to be self-aware. Self-awareness sometimes takes people till 60, 65 years of age, right? So technically, not everyone is critical or able to even formulate what they want from that learning journey, because till they've not stepped it in, how would they know what the experience is going to be like? So thank you so much for that, Shikha. Audience questions. Yashwant, could you help me here, please, in terms of redirecting some questions?
Yes, thanks so much to each one of you for a great, deliberation so far. Let me now, move to the very important part of the session, which is about the audience round. We have so many participants out here, who are eager to, ask their questions and all. I would request the participants to, keep on coming up with your questions. I will take them during this round, and any of the speakers, can take the questions. And also, if one of you, would like to ask a live question, you can raise your hand, and I will allow you to, unmute accordingly. Let me now just go to the questions which was asked by Ravi Prasad ji. He's asking, how do you assess the effectiveness of a training program in a hybrid platform? So Tanya, Shikha, Anirban, anyone of you can take that.
I can quickly take one. Yeah, one part of that for sure. When you talk about effectiveness, this question is from who again, Yashwant?
Ravi Prasad.
Raviji. Thank you for that question, Ravi. Honestly, the first thing I need to ask you as a response to that question is, have you done the groundwork before that virtual or hybrid session? Do you know why you're doing the session? What are you trying to achieve? One of the things that we fail to do when you go into that mode of evaluating any training process is that we're not even clear as to what is the finish line like. We don't define enough. What are the behaviors that are desired at the end of that learning process? So whether it's a hybrid or it's a classroom, ultimately, these are the questions that we need to pen down and be very, very clear on. So some of our earlier learning partners had similar challenges, where the management has roped them into a training program for some solutioning, for leadership, and they expect the learning partner to have all the answers for them, which is the sad part of it. I think this is a groundwork or planning part that we need to be clear on when we ask for these learning development journeys to be formulated. So if you have the plan right and you know what the finish line looks like, what is the behavior going to look like, you would also know how to gauge it. So I'll give you a very, very simple example. If you're looking at compliances or basic hygiene kind of agenda, all you need to do is transfer the knowledge to them through any online platform and do a dipstick at the end of it to gauge the effectiveness of how much they know, or give them scenarios if you want to evaluate them. So for every kind of a topic, the effectiveness will be gauged differently depending on how you answer these set of questions.
Yes, thank you. Tanya, would like to add on to that, or can I move to the next one?
Let's go to the next question.
Sure. I have Mr. Rajiv Kuranaji, who is, I think, waiting to ask a question. Rajivji, over to you for asking the question. Can you please unmute Rajivji? Okay, let me just.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate, and my compliments to Tanya, Anirban, and Shikha for a wonderful discussion. I was very eagerly looking forward to the learning. And the theme of this program is Learning and Development Trends Shaping 2022 and Beyond. Now, as a practitioner in this area for over 37 years, I'm a little confused because for the last 2 years, we have been talking about the new normal and doing the same thing in the same old manner. And if I look at it from a macro perspective, technology has brought in a lot of changes, and we have to now cater to tier 3, 3, 4 cities also. So my question from a macro perspective is, when do we think we will be in a position to look at learning and development as an investment by the industry and not as an expense by the industry? Because so far, it is still a leisure time activity subject to availability of funds. Please.
Rajiv sir, can I start with that? And then I'd like both people to take it. So in very interesting question. In fact, when we were sort of meeting up for this session to structure it, from a macro perspective, if you look at the way our system is designed, whether it's school, college, and then consequently how you take jobs or careers or entrepreneurship, whatever have you in terms of career, the structural outcome of this entire industry is based on prestige, not necessarily knowledge. Maybe certificates, not necessarily meritocracy, which evolves as a skill set. And then the third one is money, not necessarily, the self-satisfaction that you receive from having a career or doing that work. The way we have defined these things is why it is structured that way. With that, I will let Shikha and Anirban, because I can give you the problem statement to that, because I've been thinking about this for the last 3 years as well, and just going to the core of why we behave the way we behave. But then I'll let Shikha and Anirban.
This is one of the things which is very close to my heart. Thanks, Rajivji, for bringing that up. because, you know, being an L&D OD head myself with a lot of top MNCs in the past, this was one of the major challenges, you know, and I would get loggerheads talking about, it's almost like, you know, I'm the food provider, the nutritionist in the house, and you're expecting me to serve a cuisine or a buffet of offering in terms of the food without any ration, without any, you know, absolute no ingredients in the kitchen, really. So it's ironical that it's still in that frame of mind only. It's still seen as a cost. For all we know that this pandemic, we wouldn't have sailed through had we not invested in our people and their talent and potential. So we've been able to sustain because of L&D, which is why it's moving from a good to have function to a need to have and more strategic relevance it's holding. And a lot of people have started to endorse L&D on the you know, board meetings as well, like Yashwant pointed right at the beginning, which is a good sign. So we're kind of moving like with a snail pace, maybe, Rajivji, but we're getting there. How long will it take? It's an answer that can only you know, emerge in the environment if we see more champions of leaders at the CXO level. So if our C-suite or the top management starts to reckon with how critical L&D is, it will soon move from the cost function to an investment must-do kind of a mindset for sure. So my simple answer would be, it depends on the top management and the leadership.
I've always been praying for that.
I think I will just add a little more to that, Rajivji, what Shikha and Tanya also added. I think the day we start looking at it as an investment and at a cost is when we actually know what is the ROI is and how to measure that. I think we talk a lot about the ROI on training programs, but I'm yet to, even in my Big Four career also, I'm yet to come across any organizations which measures the ROI in terms of some quantifiable parameters for the person to take a thing that, okay, I've invested 2 rupees and I've got 4 rupees. Unless it's like a stock market where you see that, okay, what you have invested is or getting more, it will remain as a cost for me, because most of the training programs, maybe some of the MNCs are driven by global. So they have to show some compliance to the global. So that's why they will do. And to be very frank, I have seen in most, even in the big of the organizations, the training programs are being, it's more of a compliance kind of thing. Okay, you have to do this training program. Really, actually, without measuring that, what exactly will they achieve by doing that? Unless, first of all, the person is not interested in that program, you are still sending him. After that, you are not even measuring what he has learned or whether he's applying that in the practical work scenario or not. So for me, it's only for that 8 hours or 4 hours of learning, which is like a little leisure time for me. I go have some good buffet and do the learning and come back. And for 3-4 days, it may have stuck in my mind, okay, I need to do something else. But again, my manager will have no clue that what training program I have done, and he will still give me some different work, which will take that learning away from me. Unless that entire alignment happens, in my opinion, it will be always seen as a cost rather than investment kind of thing, is what my simple 2 cents.
Thank you, Yashwant. I could have added many more things, but I respect the time. Thank you so much for allowing me, please.
Rajivji, for the sake of the discussion, please do, because technically the entire system is currently solving for symptoms and not the causes. So even measurement cannot really help change anything if you think about it, right? If we start looking for an ROI and everything, people will stop coming to class. The reason one comes to class is because the teacher is happy, not because the teacher has content, right? So if you could add, that would be wonderful, I think, for the sake of the
How much time am I allowed?
5 minutes.
I'm grateful. Thank you so much. You see, the first thing we suffer from is, let's talk from an external trainer's perspective. After every training, even if it is 40 minutes online, you have your procedural requirement of assessing the trainers. So long as you will keep assessing the trainers are only going to give you goody stuff and nothing more than that. The second thing is, organization take over the responsibility of training people. They are yet to create the culture where the learning is the responsibility of the employee. I've always been talking about it, that the period of Arjun is over. It is the period of Eklavya. Guru Dronacharya had 105 plus one lady to be taught. He was appointed teacher. Eklavya learned on his own. In this hybrid world, people will have to start learning on their own. So the biggest challenge as of today in Atmanirbhar Bharat is an Atmanirbhar employee. When you have a product,
Fantastic
you want the
point.
latest technology. You want latest technology, and you don't invest for the company to bring in a new model. If they don't bring in the new model, you will not buy it. So if the employee does not upgrade himself, he has no business to be in business. Let us give him a quota treatment. And quota treatment, KOTA, is, I'm talking very straight languages, kick on the ass. And only then people will learn that they have the responsibility to learn on their own. And you know, in this changing scenario, we also have to think how, and you're talking about micro learning, that's the future surely. But if a program which should be communicated in 20 minutes and in a webinar, we take 20 minutes in introductions, we have to also examine what are we doing. Because the attention span is absolutely dwindling. And therefore, another aspect where the external trainers are responsible for, in the pursuit for seeking business, they're unnecessarily undervaluing themselves. And therefore, for peanuts, they're ready to work and spoil the market, and the industry is only looking in terms of L1 trainers, the lowest cost trainers in colleges and in organizations. And if you cannot enhance your own price, I'm sorry, you will only get kachara. And when you get kachara and you apply the concept of return on investment, I think this is an absolute intellectual dishonesty training and development profession as of today is working on. We really need to think in terms of what the future holds, and therefore those challenges of future is important. Anirban, I mentor a law firm. And I feel amongst the professional service providers in the knowledge economy, the resistance to acknowledge the need for learning itself is a huge challenge. And the trouble is, organizations take over the responsibility. We are going to train. Who are you, yaar? If the guy is not willing to learn, I'm sorry. The trouble in online learning is still the trainer takes over the responsibility. I have to train and I have to keep them entertained. I have to keep them glued. अरे यार कीचड़ के अंदर हीरा पड़ा हुआ है तो तुम कीचड़ में घुस के उस हीरे को निकालोगे ना. So you have to develop the culture where the learner gets into the mode of acquiring the learning, seeking the learning, rather than waiting for the learning to drop with the screen switched off and he is doing something else because he has to be shown as part of the presence. So therefore, bringing in that culture of eklavya is the facilitation we training and development professionals and HR professionals and the CXOs have the onerous responsibility to working on. Rest, I think, is all
so much,
matter of
Rajesh.
time.
In
I'll
fact,
close it here.
Like you pointed out, that learning agility, learning culture is going to be the key forward. Let me now go to the very interesting question from Sanket Ji, who is asking what are the new trends, what are the new emerging trends in the learning analytics? How it is being used to take strategic decisions in the learning and development function? Tanya, would you like to take that, or Shikha, Anirban? Yes,
I'll add, Tanya, you can start, I'll add to it.
No, do you want to take that? Because that's not my area of expertise at all.
So to be very honest, I think Yashwant has already started off by saying what are the trends that are picking up. Micro learning is definitely picked up in a big way. Only during the pandemic, I think the uptake has gone up by 70 to 80% for platforms like Coursera, Udemy, or LinkedIn Learning for that matter. And we're happy doing it, okay? We're more than happy going through these courses, adding those certifications to our profiles as well. But having said that, I think one of the things that I feel has picked up a lot is the ability to unlearn as well. And people have started to talk about learning, unlearning, and relearning, as much as we were talking about upskilling, which to my assessment has become more critical than ever. So I want to go back to what Rajiv ji was pointing out, that things need to be self-driven for sure, which I completely endorse. But at the same time, we cannot forget the context and the environment that we're operating in, and the mental state and the emotional state of our people today after this pandemic. So that calls in for a lot of responsibility at the management and the leadership level as well. As much as we would want to take the self-directed learning forward, I think it's equally critical to support it with the right ecosystem. So I'll give you a classic example of what happens to a learner on the ground who goes back enthused, through the program, is invigorated, whether it's a virtual hybrid model or a classroom, wants to apply the learning, but the minute the person is curious to do something new, the manager knocks him down or questions him, okay? Or just discourages in subtle ways that the person doesn't want to try again. So the inability to accept newness in the environment, or to, adopt to changes as and when they come in through these learning programs, is also very, very low. I think what's essential for us to focus on is training this managerial level to kind of evolve to that level and be more supportive, be more human-centric today, and go all out so that learning culture can really come into play. Because learning is what? It's curiosity. It's at the end of the day, you and I want to do 10 things. We'll figure out, various mediums to go and pick that information and play around with it. But till the time I don't have the permission in the organization to apply it, to actually bring it into play, how will I ever get encouraged to go forward with it or run with it, for that matter? And then next time around, I'll think 10 times. So in terms of trend, I think social learning, micro learning, these aspects have their own role to play. We have LXPs today, which are picking up, which is an AI-driven platform, which gives you all the intelligence in the world, the data analytics to build on. But sadly enough, I think the competencies lack somewhere with respect to L&D professionals not being adept at using data for their decision making and curating content henceforth, or designing learning journeys accordingly. So I feel there's a lot to be done around the technology which is available in the market to actually make it work for you.
Sure, Tanya would like to add on that.
Yeah, Sanket, quick couple of things just in terms of analytics and what it means in terms of measurement, right? So there are a lot of assessment tools available, generally speaking, at the end of all core skill sets that you test. Typically, technical skills, cognitive skills, and behavioral skills are what one needs to assess in terms of understanding whether the learning has been sealed. Now, then you have a further down assessment tools of Metal, VBox, Eklavya, for example, is also a company, CoCubes, MeritTrack, Aspiring Minds, etc. So there are all these companies available in the market right now, which actually provide that assessment framework for different job roles in the way the current system is structured. The third piece in analytics would be recommendation engines. So today, for example, if you're a data-driven organization and you are your office PC and you keep, most office PCs, you're not really allowed to search on the internet, etc. But your Google, for example, is a smart AI-driven, data-driven tool. So that builds a recommendation or your data set, and that will sort of keep giving you pop-ups or advertisements. So this is also typically how a data-driven analytics learning tool would look like end-to-end in terms of what information it would pick up and what it would throw out to you. I was involved with this company called Human Edge Enterprises. They were trying to build a very specific data run app, which means that today if you have a Fitbit और आप उसके ऊपर अपना, and this was for health, right? तो आप अगर उसके ऊपर अपना steps count track कर रहे हो, फिर आपके पास एक patch है, उससे आप अपना heart rate calculate कर रहे हो, उसके बाद आप खुद कुछ information भर रहे हो behavioral, उस सबको cumulate करके, the idea was to build, a tracker for how your body is evolving and learning over time. So those are some of the examples that I just wanted to throw out.
I add one more point here because I think it's pertinent to what we're talking. I did these sessions, back in one of my erstwhile companies. They were, say, for example, you have to do a training on code of ethics. You have to do a training on POSH awareness, and then some sessions on self-effectiveness like time management or stress management. And you have trainings to be done on, say, presentation skills or teamwork. Now, each of these topics are of different category, like Tanya mentioned, and the learning outcome or the effectiveness will be different for each one of them, right? So if you're talking about ROI or analytics really, or the end result of these trainings, each one will have a different methodology. So if it's a knowledge sharing process, the only gauge would be a dipstick or a knowledge check. If you're talking about something which is for personal effectiveness, I would perhaps give the person a little more aid to go back to it and practice it and rehearse it, and then self-evaluate if required. For example, stress, how would the management know what is the person, whether the person has improved with respect to his stress levels or not? But I would know if I'm feeling relaxed or better off in terms of with my responses to various stimuli maybe. So that's one of the things that we need to also keep in mind when it comes to learning outcomes, because we tend to forget it, that each of these subjects or learning outcomes have to be treated differently. If it is presentation skills or teamwork, the best way to gauge the ROI or to see the end result is to actually make them do it. Give them projects where they have to collaborate and work together. If you have to see the result of whatever training online or classroom you've arranged for them. So each topic or the learning outcome has to be, I think, structured and dealt with slightly differently to my assessment. And there can be no thumb rule, according to me, for these kind of deliverables.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shikha, for your inputs on that. Keeping due the paucity of time, we will not be able to take much questions now. I'll just take the last question. We have Ashish Gakre, who is also one of the the young leaders out here. Ashish, would you like to ask the question live? Ashish Gakre ji.
Hey,
yes, Ashish, can you hear me?
Yeah, some disturbance. So you are able to hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, so I wanted to know because it's data says learning, unlearning, relearning more than 40 to 50% of people should be reskill up a skill. So it goes directly for a learning and all. My question is when to stop learning, because we need to work as well, right?
Yeah.
So how much time we should spend in training, learning versus working and giving productivity? Thank you.
आशीष जी जैसा आपको ठीक लगे.
I think I will just attempt that. The thing is, if you see Ashish, and Ashish is a very good friend of mine also. So the thing, if you see in the learning, when you want to stop, is a different question altogether. Thing is that when you feel that you have gained exactly what you wanted to do that job effectively, I think the analysis says that 3% of your time should be on learning. So practically 5 minutes a day should at least be on learning something for which the micro learnings, in-app experiences and everything is coming. While on the move, you are seeing app, you are seeing videos and all those things and trying to get that. In certain industry, learning is never ending. And the more you learn, and also it's a part of the on the job. For example, the legal industry which I come, or a big four industry which I come, you are actually selling knowledge. There is nothing else. You are not selling any software, IT, technology, anything. You are selling advice. If you are selling advice, then your learning can't stop, because that's exactly your main asset. The people, client, and knowledge. These are the three assets with which any professional services firm work. And if exactly that's what you are saying, you really can't understand. The time when you stop learning is when you are out of the market. So the thing is that you have to understand that to deliver your thing efficiently to the clients, how much learning, at least how much minimum learning you need to do to give a quality solution to the client. If you are not in that stage, then probably there is no point being in a knowledge intensive industry, is what my take is.
Yeah, I honestly feel learning is like flowing river. So would it ever stop flowing? I don't know if I can answer that question ever. I think learning is an ongoing process. We all strive on learning. And like you rightly pointed, I'd agree, depending on the problem that you're trying to solve or the purpose that you're trying to serve, you can vary the learning from one point to the other and space it out for sure. But learning can't really stop as an individual for each, at least for me for sure. I speak on my behalf.
May I add something? It is, in short, it is just like breathing. If somebody asks, when do I stop breathing? So it is like that only. So learning is an automatic process. It should be integral part.
In
The
fact,
way
just
we breathe
just to
involuntarily.
True. In fact, just to add to that, because there's too much happening on virtual platforms to people, I think it's important that we answer questions like, what do we need to unlearn and offload? What do we need to let go? Because there's so many things that are not serving their purpose and it's not working anymore in terms of HR practices or the erstwhile training practices. If you're not able to identify and let go and unlearn, that'll be one big learning failure for us. So I think it's important that we keep our focus on that as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And it's very good to see that you brought it up. Learning agility is going to be the key. But I believe, apart from, the learning part of it, it is also equally important that the learning has to be action oriented. How it is actually impacting the business, as a whole. I think that's where the challenge lies. So thank you so much to all the participants for very, vibrant, audience round. Let me now hand it over to Tanya, for the final comments from the moderator and the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yashwant. So I think it's safe to conclude a couple of things from today's session. One is, of course, the last point first, which is learning should never stop. However, it is contextual to industries and what you really want to create in the world. So if you want to be in knowledge services, you want to be in the legal industry, you must never stop consuming content or information. Where you consume it doesn't really matter, but the onus lies on you, which is the second point that we came across in the discussion. This pandemic has exposed the change in the system from the push, carrot and stick that we were all used to as a country to the more proactiveness of your career is your own. Take your life in your hands. You are the source. And there is nothing that can stop you if you know. So ऐसा नहीं है कि mentors mentee को choose करते हैं, mentee भी mentor को choose करता है, especially when it comes to learning. The third one is the technology piece of it. Now we all know, of course, that learning needs to be engaging. There are particular models which are present already. There's a lot of research that's been done in the industry about how to improve engagement, what sort of questions to ask, how to relate it to goals. And a lot of the HR organizations wherein the laurel used to rest on the HR as a person or a persona now has gotten divided into the HR VP, the learning and development professional, and the chief people officer, who's also partly responsible for culture. And all of those things really tie in together, which means that it's collective, wherein the learner has to first be proactive in terms of where they see their career, have a proactive discussion with the person who is responsible for giving them that next step. Otherwise, talk to 10 people, 100 people, whatever have you. And the medium doesn't matter. The idea is the effectiveness. And the idea is really how much can you consume effectively in that period of time. So try not to do too much. Just focus on your strengths, figure out your meta skills, and just try and enjoy the whole thing. And with that, I would like to thank Yashwant, ISTD, Delhi NCR chapter, NHRD, DMA, FMA, BIMTECH, and everyone else who made this, Dr. GP Rao, who made this possible, and Shikha and Anirban. I had a lot of fun asking you questions.
It was lovely for us to talk to you and to hear all the rounds of discussions and all the brilliant questions from the audience, really. I think I'd like to quickly add an analogy here for L&D professionals. The way forward is such that you have to realize when you have to play the jockey and when you have to play the horse. So there are times when you have to run with things and make things happen on the ground level. And there'll be times when you'll be driving systems and the organization in a certain way. Barring that, I think you need to be well supported with the ecosystem and the infrastructure and the right set of champions for your learning processes. So thank you so much. It was a heartwarming discussion, very enlightening. Thank you to my co-panelist Anirban also for his valuable insights and for all the brilliant questions from the audience and additions from Rajiv ji as well. Thank you, Tanya. Thank you, Yashwant and ISTD.
Thank you so much, Anirban.
Yes, hi. Thank you, Yashwant. Tanya, wonderful questions which you have asked, and Shikha, thanks for enlightening on the L&D piece. I think one thing I just want to end this session with is that earlier, probably 15 years back, when people were not so conscious about what they exactly need to do the job, has changed over a period of time. Now, as you say, Eklavya, many of the people are, and as I see, most of the professionals are aware that what they exactly need to learn, why they need to learn. And it is not that the organization is giving them something to just push that, okay, you please do this learning to come up to. they are also asking questions that what will exactly I gain by doing this. So it's a two-way traffic which is happening, as a result of which even the organizations are answerable to people before sending them to a learning and development program and what exactly I need you to do after this program. Earlier, it was more like a process which was going on. Okay, anyone coming, we will give this training, that training. But exactly, is that something which I require or is it not required? I think that clarity has come at least now in a lot more way as when I compare my career when I was just starting in the industry. So I think with that, I think it was a wonderful session, and the session was very relevant. I think we had got some interesting audience questions, and I really thank Mr. GP Rao, Mr. Khurana ji, and Mr. Mukesh Jain, and everyone for having us in this stage together. Thank you, Tanya, and thank you, Shikha, once again.
Thank you so much, Tanya, Anirban, and Shikha ji. Let me, with this, we now have almost come to the end of the session. But before we move on to that, let me now invite Dr. Manoj Chaudhary ji, who is the Professor OB and HRM from BIMTECH, who also happens to be our associate for the entire event. Thank you so much for your association, ma'am. We would definitely love to hear your summarization of the key learning, from your perspective, definitely. Thank you so much, ma'am, and over to you for your final remarks on this. Manoj ji.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. It has been a wonderful session and a whole lot of learning for me as well. I was just, seeking help in terms of getting myself unmuted. We began with, why L&D? So what is the purpose? What do we want to change in the organization or in the individuals? What are we looking at? Is it prestige, knowledge, money, meritocracy? From there on, we moved on to, various kinds of facets. How the pandemic has affected us, what are the technologies, the various platforms that we are using in order to engage with the learners. And, this is something, this discussion was so close to my heart because we are in a profession wherein we are, dealing with this challenge every day on a day-to-day basis. So, personalizing learning, we looked at the importance of that. How learners are being overwhelmed with the influx of so much of information. What is the awareness level about what are the learnings available to the individuals in the organization? The champions of learning. So Shikha, I really liked your analogy of the coffee, where you spoke about the right mix in the learning strategy in terms of resources, technology, making it more people-centric, and the differentiation between hybrid and blended learning. Your PPV model of trying to focus on the problem that you're trying to address, making it people-centric, and some sort of value addition, making it relevant and accessible to people. We spoke about the challenge of lack of social connect, wherein performance was becoming, it was become counterproductive, and the significance of platforms like Gametize for induction and training, which you seem to have used very effectively. Tools like Kahoot, Blackboard, we ourselves use Google Classrooms, Mentimeters, breakout rooms on Zoom, MS Teams, trying with all our heart in order to increase the engagement level of our learners, somehow convincing them to have their cameras on and focusing on the discussion that's going on. We've also have to deal with this challenge of, again, going back to curation and design of the whole sessions, how to make it more appealing, interesting, and how to space out, how to use the LMS. We've had a wonderful discussion there. The significance of micro learning, because not just looking at lectures or discussions, but also getting into significant usage of YouTube videos and other learning material, reading material, etc. The significance of learning, unlearning, relearning, the significance of taking up ownership and responsibility for in our own personal learning, especially in the wake of decreasing attention spans. So, wonderful inputs coming from all our panelists, from Mr. Rajiv Khurana, wonderful questions asked, and wonderful answers given to those questions. So that's my bit of summarizing whatever happened in this session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Manasiji. Thank you so much for your summarization of the learning. It was indeed, great for everyone to learn from that. For the audience, I have also shared the Mentimeter link in the chat box. So since we have had so many takeaways, so I would request you to kindly share your one key takeaway, one major takeaway from the session through this link, and then we will be able to understand what we have learned exactly. So while you do that, let me now invite D.V. Shastri sir, who is the Vice Chairman of ISTD Delhi Chapter, to kindly propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, Shastri sir.
Thank you, Yashwant. Thank you for giving me this important responsibility. One observation I could make is that it is good to see ladies taking lead. Even in this event, we had two ladies, one moderating, one of the speakers. And as all of us know, ONGC is now headed by Alka Mittalji, who is a lady. Engineers India Limited is headed by Vartika Shukla, again a lady, Steel Authority. So it is wonderful to see the ladies taking lead in all walks of life. Secondly, I really enjoyed the session, and I must thank the moderator and the speakers, that is Tanya Singh, Mr. Anirban Das, and Shikha Verma, for their valuable inputs during this session. At least I gained a lot from this session. The example of coffee was very good. Everybody has his own taste or blend. But here I would like to leave a question to Shikha and to others, that the fundamental question is whether, if the user is liking coffee, but whether that coffee is in the benefit of the organization or tea is there, then as L&D people, we must be courageous enough to recommend that, okay, although you like coffee, but it is not in your interest and organization interest, so you must take tea. So that is also a big responsibility for L&D professionals. And in the summary, I would like to thank everyone apart from the moderator and the speakers, the important office bearers and members from ISTD, NIPM, NHRDN, DMA, FMA, and BIMTECH, especially Mr. Mukesh Jain, the chairman of ISTD Delhi chapter, Dr. G.P. Rao. His organization's name itself is GPR, that is Good People Relations. So that's wonderful. And Dr. Harivansh Chaturvedi from BIMTECH, Manasi Chaudhary, Mr. Ashish Gakre, Mr. Rajiv Khurana, Mr. Y.N. Kaushal, Pritimaji, Dr. Mukul Jain, Mr. Deepak Bharara, Mr. Dr. R.S. Dabas, Professor Jay Prakash Bagale, and above all, the audience, which was very, very participative and curious, because curiosity is the fundamental thing for learning. So it was a wonderful audience who came out with very, very good questions, and overall it was an excellent session. Thank you, each one of you. Over to Yashwant.
Thank you so much, sir, for proposing the vote of thanks. Thanks so much once again. I also thank all the participants who have joined, and also the associate bodies from the industry, including NIPM Delhi NCR chapter, NHRDN Delhi NCR chapter, Faridabad Management Association, Delhi Management Association, our academic partner BIMTECH for the event. I thank each one of you, for your kind associations and encouraging the Young Leaders Series events. And also we will look forward to your kind support going forward. Thank you so much, Shastriji, for your vote of thanks as well. With this, I will now like to hand it over to Mukesh sir for the final remarks.
Thank you, Yashwant. We are indeed grateful to our wonderful panelists and moderator, Tanya ji, Shikha ji, and Anirban ji, and our own Dr. Chaturvedi and Dr. Manosi Chaudhary from BIMTECH. Thank you very much for supporting. Thanks, Mr. Yuvraj Srivastav, Mr. Yogesh Mishra, and Mr. Abhay Kapoor from all the wonderful associations who have, given us support to be associated with this program. So I'm sure you must have taking something with you with a wonderful program just now. NIPM, ISTD, and other organizations are organized this evening. So I'm sure your participation will motivate us to organize such more programs. So please keep motivating us and attend our more programs. Our next program is on 5th of February with the Asia Coaching Network. So we have already circulated the creative and invitation. Alokji, do you have invitation? Alokji?
Sure, I'm just sharing it, sir.
Just a second. So this is the program Cultivating Growth and Learning Mindsets. So our own Dr. VP Singh is the moderator. We are having Mr. Malik, Mr. Vimal Malhotra, and Mr. Aditya Sareen. They are very senior people in their own field. So I would request all of you to please make a note and join this program positively and punctually. Thank you very much. So finally, thanks to our Mr. D.V. Sastry sir for proposing a vote of thanks, Dr. Manosi Chaudhary, Yashwant, and Alok ji for all the support, and all my seniors and friends who have attended this program. Good evening, namaskar, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for your kind words and also sharing the information for the upcoming program. Thank you, Tanya ji, Shikha ji, and Anirban. Manosi ma'am, thanks so much once again. And I saw Harivan Chaturvedi sir also just in a while. So thank you so much, sir, for joining in. Ashish Gakre ji and so many seniors from the fraternity. Thank you so much once again for making it a great session. We look forward to your time.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ji. Thank you. Namaskar.
Bye, guys. Have a good
Bye,
weekend.
bye.
Thank you.
Alok ji, thank you.
Bye.